If you've been listening in for a while now, you'll know that this year has been a somewhat difficult year for me, largely because of the personal boundaries I'm pushing through and a little dash of that thing called midlife, just to spice things up and keep things interesting. And one of the things I know about coming up against challenges or obstacles or hurdles, however you like to think of them, is that it's very easy to get stuck in these moments and convince yourself that what you want is just all too hard and that maybe what you want is not for you. I also know that it's important to have something up your sleeve in these moments to help you quickly and easily work through the things that challenge you. So you can stop yourself heading into that all too hard downward spiral and stay on track to the life that I promise is absolutely for you. So, today I want to share with you an approach that I've been using this year to stop feeling stuck and start seeing the difficult as doable. I call it the 3D hack, and I found it to be a very powerful tool to shift my mindset quickly and easily in the moment so I can spend less time spinning my wheels and more time blazing a trail down the path I want to go. If you're ready to move beyond the difficult, then stick around, my friend, and let me share my 3D hack for doing exactly that. Welcome to the Self Creation School podcast for women who are ready to ditch mediocrity, step up and get more of what they want, and finally say yes to a life that sets their soul on fire. I'm your host, Leanne Letica, self creation coach, founder of the Self Creation School, and queen of yes. If you're ready to play life by your own personal rulebook and give yourself permission to say yes to yourself and your wildest dreams, this podcast is the place for you. A warm hello to you from my little pocket of the world. I hope you are having a fabulous week. I know mine has been a really energizing one. I have been in such an inspired energy lately. I feel a lot of changes coming about, and like I'm on the edge of the next level me unfolding, which feels super exciting, not just for me, but for what I know it will bring to how I help you be the woman who says yes to a life that feels wildly fulfilling in ways you haven't even yet imagined, my friend. So let's get straight into today's conversation and talk about my 3D hack. If you are listening in to this podcast, I know there's a good chance that you are a woman who wants to expand your life experience and become the most fully expressed version of you that you can be in your lifetime. That you are a woman who is committed to upgrading your skills and working on who you be to help you create the life you want. You are not taking time out of your one precious life because you love the sound of my voice. I know it's hard for me to believe that too. But seriously, you are listening in, perhaps following me on my socials. Maybe you get my weekly self creation secrets by email because you have dreams and goals that require you to become more than who you are in this moment. And you are actively seeking up the knowledge and the support to help you do exactly that. Now, whether you are just getting started on reinventing your world to one that finally feels good, you are seasoned in doing this self work, or you are somewhere in between. Here's what I want you to know about becoming the most fully expressed version of you who lives the most expansive life you can imagine. It will require that you set big, bold goals far beyond your comfort zone that demand you grow who you be to achieve them. The kind of big, bold goals that make you feel mighty, uncomfortable, and excited all at the same time. And one of the things that you can be sure will happen when you do this is that you will come up against this little thing called difficult. You will face moments where being who you need to be to do the things you need to do to create the life you want will seem overwhelmingly insurmountable, all too hard to overcome. The danger in these moments is that the longer you stay in them, the more likely you are to convince yourself that what you want isn't for you. And my friend, nothing could be further from the truth. I've learned over the years that what you want wants you right back if you will stay committed to what you want until, until you make it yours. And as a coach, I have a whole toolkit of in depth methods, approaches, processes, call them what you will, to help you overcome your obstacles so you can keep moving forward to the life you want until. But there's a time and place for doing the deep work and a time and a place for quick and easy techniques that can help you keep moving forward in the moment. Now, I for sure have had to do a lot of deep work around my challenges this year. It's work I am still actively doing on a daily basis. I'm always doing this work that I share with you in my own life, just to be clear. In fact, one of the best tips I can ever give you is to commit to working on yourself, on who you be in some way every single day. To look after your mindset, your self image, your thoughts, feelings, and beliefs, just like you look after your hunger for food. When I reached my lowest moments back in my early to mid 40s, I realized I had stopped doing the one thing that helped me transform my very ordinary life as a broke single mom cleaning the homes of multimillionaires to the extraordinary life that became mine when I made my own millions. I had stopped intentionally choosing who I say yes to being every single day. I stopped working out at the self work gym. The weeds very quickly started to take over, and gradually my extraordinary life became very ordinary once more. Think about it like this: it's what happens when you're used to working out on your fitness and then you stop. Your fitness, your muscle tone, your strength, your flexibility, they all gradually decline until one day you find yourself out of breath climbing the stairs, cringing at how all your flabby bits wobble as you climb them. It's never a wonderful thing to experience. So, self work for me today is simply non negotiable. I did not enjoy my life at all when I allowed my self image to become unfit and flabby. And I don't know about you, but I do not have time in the rest of my one precious life to settle for ordinary, especially when I know the kind of extraordinary that becomes possible if you will just choose to make working on yourself a priority in your everyday. Now, let me jump off my soapbox and let's bring this back to what it is we're talking about today. As I mentioned earlier, this year has been really quite a difficult one for me in many different ways. And I've tried many different approaches to helping me deal with the difficulties I faced. And through this constant work, I came up with a streamlined hack, if you will, that I find works really well because it's so highly memorable and empowering, even in just saying the hack alone. So, are you ready? Here is my 3D hack. What's difficult is doable when you decide. What's difficult is doable when you decide. As you can see, there are three key words here, all starting with the letter D: difficult, doable, and decide. Hence the name, the 3D hack. Clever, I know. I do love me a good acronym or play on words. And no surprise, each D represents a step in the process. So let me break this down for you and explain exactly how to use my 3D hack to make the difficult doable. The first step of the 3D hack is to recognize and name what's difficult, because you cannot shift what's difficult to doable if you haven't clearly identified exactly what it is that's difficult. And you might know straight up what's difficult in your life right now, but difficult can also hide out in your life in ways you might not necessarily label as difficult. So, I want to offer you some things to think about here to help make sure you are crystal clear on what's difficult. Starting with perhaps the obvious. What have you been avoiding? What are the things that keep showing up on your to do list, yet you always seem to push them to tomorrow? Things you are resisting doing or procrastinating on doing. Is there something that you keep delaying, even though you know it would move you closer to where you want to be? Then you could think about, what are you telling yourself is impossible or not for you? What goal or dream do you keep putting on the someday list? What goals have you maybe set that feels so big and so far out of reach that you haven't even started working on them? You might find yourself saying things like, I'll get started when I know more, when I have more time, when I have more money, when I have fill in the blank. What dream or goal do you perhaps tell yourself you shouldn't go after? And finally, what feels too complicated or perhaps unclear? Where do you feel overwhelmed or anxious when you think about starting or finishing it? Where do you feel fear? What are you afraid of failing at or afraid of being exposed as not being good enough? By the way, I want you to be really honest with yourself in this process, to get real with yourself. Part of this self work is having open, honest, and non judgmental conversations with yourself about yourself and your life so that you can uncover whatever work is necessary to firm things up and keep yourself a mean and lean dream making machine. So, what are you labeling as difficult in your life right now? Remember, you cannot shift what's difficult to doable if you haven't clearly identified what it is. Once you've named it, you can move on to the next step, which is reminding yourself that this difficult thing is actually doable. Because believe me, my friend, it is doable. I hate to break it to you, and don't shoot because I'm just the messenger. It is an extremely rare thing to come across a challenge in your lifetime that hasn't been faced and overcome by someone before you. Everything is doable, even if it feels super difficult and you really don't know how or can't see how it will be doable. Last time I looked at the dictionary, the word difficult did not mean impossible. Now, I took a quick look again before recording this podcast, and sure enough, the word impossible was nowhere to be found. Here's how the dictionary defines difficult: something that is hard to do, make, or carry out, or hard to deal with, manage, or overcome. Essentially, what this is saying is that something difficult can either be challenging to accomplish or manage, and it involves effort or complexity. It doesn't say it is impossible, but rather that it likely requires more focus, creativity, or effort than you initially expected. So, step two in my 3D hack is about challenging the idea that what you're facing cannot be overcome. What's difficult is doable. Here are some ways you can challenge your stories around difficult being doable. The first thing you can do is to look for someone who has faced something like this and succeeded. Because remember, I can almost guarantee someone has faced a similar difficulty before and found a way to overcome it. Whether it's launching a new business, getting fit in your 40s, starting a podcast, writing a book, finding finance for your dream home, someone out there has walked a similar path. And seeing others who've turned difficult into doable is powerful evidence that this can be done and that it can be done by you too. Here's the thing I want you to remember about this: you do not have to personally know this person for their success to count as evidence that this is doable. So if you don't have someone that readily comes to mind, Google. Or if you're into ChatGPT, ask Chat to find some examples for you. I also want you to remember this: when you find evidence of someone who has done your difficult, you are going to be tempted to think things like, but it was easier for them. They had luck on their side. Sure, it might have been possible for them, but it isn't possible for me. But I'm not like them. They're smarter than me, more skilled than me, taller than me, more blue eyed than me. I mean, you get the idea here, right? The storyteller inside your head is going to sense that you're trying to change your tried and true story about what's possible to something new. And it is going to work very hard to convince you to hang on to your old story. That is not going to help you shift difficult to doable. And listen, maybe this person who overcame the difficult makes it look really easy for them now. But I can assure you, they also had their moments of doubt, struggle, and fear. They had to push through those feelings to make their difficult doable, just like you can. Things always look so much easier in hindsight when all is said and done and we figured out how the difficult is doable. No one starts out having all the answers. What makes something doable is the belief that you can figure it out along the way. Often, the only difference between the people who succeed and the people who stay stuck is that one of them decided the challenge was worth the effort to figure out, while the other kept telling themselves it was all too hard. And if you still need convincing, I want you to think back to your own life. I want you to take some time to reflect on something you once thought was difficult, something that at the time felt overwhelming or out of reach, but you did it anyway. Maybe it was a career move, earning a degree, ending a relationship, committing to a relationship, starting a family, getting the finance to buy your own home. At one point, you might have doubted your ability to achieve this thing, but here you are on the other side of it. What changed between that moment of doubt and your eventual success? What made it doable? In most cases, it wasn't that the challenge suddenly became easier, but rather you shifted. You found a way to break it down, you sought help or advice, or you simply decided to keep going despite the difficulty. So that's what this step is all about. It's about reminding yourself that the same woman who conquered those past challenges is still within you, capable of making this new challenge doable as well. When you view something as doable, it changes the way you approach it. You go from seeing barriers to seeing possibilities. You open yourself up to solutions that might not have been obvious before. This mindset shift is what turns I can't into I can. And once you've embraced this shift, it becomes clear that even your most challenging tasks are within your reach. So here's what I want you to do. Take a moment to reflect on one of those past wins in your life, a time when you overcame something that once felt difficult. What made it doable for you then? And how can you apply that same mindset to what you're facing today? And if you really can't find evidence in your own life that you can do difficult things, go back and borrow the evidence from someone else. In fact, I recommend you try and do both things here. Find the evidence in your own life that you can do difficult things, and find the evidence that the thing you want to do has been done by others before you. Remember, what's difficult is always doable when you decide that it is. And that brings me to the final step in my 3D hack: decide. This is perhaps the most important part of this process, because a woman who decides and decides intentionally is a woman who becomes unstoppable. There are three parts to this step, so let's cover them one by one. The very first thing you must decide is that you will rewrite your rules around what's possible, that you will shift your stories from can't do to can do. Now, you've already done some groundwork here in looking for the evidence that what's difficult is doable in the last step. This is massively going to help you rewrite your rules and shift your stories around what's possible, but only if you decide to accept the evidence. Now, even just one piece of evidence that your difficult is doable or that you are capable of doing difficult things is enough proof to dispel the idea that the difficult you face isn't doable. But if you are still unconvinced that what's difficult is doable, I encourage you to keep looking for more evidence until you rest your case. then what I want you to do is take this a little deeper and look at what specific stories came up for you when you started thinking about the difficult being doable. You likely heard these stories during the last step. Those yes buts. Yes, but it's harder for me. Yes, but I don't have the skills, the time, or the money. Yes, but things were different back then. Yes, but it's possible for them, but not for me. Yes, but I'm just not good enough. I'll be judged. It's not my pay grade, and so on and so on. What stories came up for you when you looked for doable evidence? Why do you tell yourself your difficulty is not doable for you in this moment? These are your can't do stories, and these stories become the rules you live by, rules that simply will not help what's difficult become doable. To move forward, you must rewrite these stories and change your rules. Now, I don't have time in this podcast episode today to go into the details of exactly how to do that. But if you need more help with this, I've got a really powerful process called the self creation shift that goes into how to rewrite your limiting stories and beliefs that keep you stuck. You can get hold of a copy of that by taking my free Yes Block assessment over on my website, which helps you uncover the most predominant thing that stops you saying yes to the life you want. A really good thing to know, by the way, and you'll find the link to that assessment in the show notes. But let me give you a couple of quick example rewrites right now to give you an idea, and then we'll move on. Instead of telling yourself, it's not doable because I'm too busy, you might rewrite that as, I will prioritize this because it matters to me. Or if you're telling yourself, I'll never figure this out, you might shift that to, I am resourceful and I will figure it out step by step. These new stories aren't about denying the effort required. They're about empowering yourself to see that the effort is worth it and that you are capable of doing it. Just a small shift in the language you use can completely transform how you feel about the challenge in front of you. And remember this, when you decide to rewrite your story, you open the door to all kinds of new possibilities. Let's move on. Part two of deciding is to decide who you say yes to being with your new rule about what's doable. This is about redefining who you be from a woman who can't do this thing to a woman who can and will. The most powerful action and the least resistant action you can take is from a place of who you be, your identity. When you see yourself as a woman who can get this done and you embody the traits of this version of you, you'll start to show up in your world differently. You will start to see things differently and you will take action very differently. And here's the real truth about this, my friend. You are already that woman. You faced challenges before, even when they seemed overwhelming, and you found a way through. I know this because I'm pretty sure you learned to walk, talk, and eat. Am I right? Those things were not so easy at the time, but they were doable and you had what it takes to do them. I promise you, you already possess everything you need, whether it's determination, resourcefulness, or creativity, to figure things out, even if you don't always see it. Now it's about consciously choosing to step into that version of yourself to face what feels difficult right now. You've done it before and you can do it again, this time with intention and confidence. So I want you to think about the traits you need to embody in order to make this difficult thing doable. Maybe it's being creative, resourceful, determined, or confident. List out 3 to 5 traits that will support you in moving forward. And a tip here for you, your new doable story will leave clues. In the examples I gave you a moment ago, the traits of a woman who prioritizes this because it matters to her might be focused, intentional, and committed. The traits of a woman who is resourceful and will figure it out step by step. She might be creative, persistent, and problem solving. What I want you to understand about this is that when you intentionally decide who you're going to be, you are no longer just hoping your difficult will get easier. You're making a commitment to being the kind of woman who gets it Done. Now, once you've identified 3 to 5 traits of the you for whom the difficult is doable, the third and final part of this step, and the very last step in my 3D hack, is to decide to do. This is where you begin to reinvent your world, my friend. This is where you take your rewritten rule and your redefined self and you embody them in your daily life. But here's what I'll say about this first and foremost. This is not about reinventing your world overnight. This is about taking small steps every single day to embody your doable story and self, just one small action at a time. Not about doing everything at once or even getting it right all at once. What you're looking for here is small, consistent steps in the right direction, not huge leaps. So here's what I want you to ask yourself. What's one small action you can take today that aligns with your new story and the traits of your new self identity? Maybe it's committing to working on your project for just 15 minutes or reaching out to someone who can help you get unstuck. Maybe it's setting a boundary you've been avoiding or scheduling that tough conversation you've been putting off. The key here, once again, is to start with one step. And then once you've taken that step, to take the next step and then the one after that. True progress is made through small, manageable actions that build momentum over time. The woman who takes consistent action, just small steps, consistently, every day over time, is the woman who will see the difficult become doable. Every step you take is a vote for the new version of you who can do this. So, to recap on my 3D hack before we close things out, the phrase to remember is what's difficult is doable when you decide. The first step is to get clear on what's difficult. The second step is to find evidence of your difficult being doable or your ability to do difficult things. And the third step is to decide. Decide to rewrite your stories of can't to can. Decide who you say yes to being with this new doable story by defining your doable self traits. And finally, decide to do, to take action one step at a time to live by your new doable story and embody the traits of your new doable self. Ultimately, the power of this hack lies in application. It's great to have this process up your sleeve, but it means nothing unless you pull it out and use it to start shifting what's difficult to doable. To decide to be a woman for whom everything is possible because everything is doable. Before I sign off, I created a workbook for this process, especially for this podcast episode, and you can grab a copy for free right now over on my website. It will help you become familiar with the 3D hack, and with a small amount of practice, you'll be soon able to apply it on the run without necessarily needing to stop and spend a whole lot of time to think things through. For me, sometimes, yes, I still need to stop and think to write down what comes up. But many times I'm able to quickly run through this process in my head or very quickly in this workbook and keep moving forward. I do go into a little more detail when it comes to rewriting your story as well. So it's a great little workbook to have on hand for those difficult moments. If you'd like to grab yourself a copy, you'll find the link to that in the show notes. I hope my 3D hack has inspired you to start seeing the doable in your difficult. And I'd really love to hear what you think or how this has helped you say yes to taking action on something that you've been stuck on. So jump into my DMs over on my socials and tell me all the things, or drop me a line to my email. I really do love reading your emails. And by the way, I reply personally to every single one of them. I'll be back next Wednesday with an episode I'm really excited to share with you. It is one of my most favorite topics, and I do hope you'll join me. Until then, be the woman who says yes. Hey, want to know what's stopping you from saying yes to you and a life you love? Head over to selfcreationschool.com/yesblock and take my free 60-second quiz to find out what's standing in your way today. And I'll send you my self-creationship process for shifting it. That's selfcreationschool.com/yeslook. I'll see you there.